Next up tonight, we've got our very good friend Andrew Klavan. He, of course, an acclaimed screenwriter, a novelist. His brand new book, A Strange Habit of Mind, would make a really good Christmas present because it's a sequel to his book that came out right before Christmas last year. And of course, he's a podcaster over at the Daily Wire, the Andrew Klavan Show. Andrew, thank you for being here.
It's great to see you.
Right before the election, too. And let's talk about, you know that film, The Candidate, Robert Redford,
Yeah.
The Candidate, remember? It's actually, I like that.
It's a wonderful film.
It's a great film, and it was before Robert ever got too crazy. And of course, the famous ending. He wins the election. Spoiler alert, sorry. And then he looks around and he says, now what?
Yeah, because they told him he could say anything he wanted because he was going to lose. That was his guarantee.
That's right,
yeah.
And he won, and he didn't know what to do. What are we going to do? And I sort of get that sense from Republicans. It's like, no, I didn't know. And I listen, I'm a Republican, but what was Will Rogers' line, to paraphrase it? I don't belong to an organized political party. I'm a Democrat. Right. Well, you can say that these days about Republicans. They put out their agenda. This is what they're going to do. Most of it was green eye shade stuff, economy stuff, inflation stuff. Fine, yes, I get it. That's important, but I don't know. I talk to a lot of conservatives. They want revenge. Nancy Pelosi knows how to use a majority, and I'm not so sure Republicans do.
I'm not so sure Republicans want a majority. I've always been confused about this. You know,
yeah?
I mean, there's a way in which Congress itself has decided that it doesn't want to pass any laws. It wants the agencies to take care of everything, because then when you run, you can say, well, those darn agencies, you know.
Yeah, everyone hates the bureaucrats.
We passed a good 10,000-page law, but the way they interpreted it is wrong. You know? And so, like, they don't have to take responsibility. Republicans have a very good life when they just go on their committee, their investigative committee, and shake their fingers at some public official, and then they go on Fox News that night, and yes, I shook my, oh boy, did I shake my finger.
I wrote an angry letter. Yeah. I got 3 of my colleagues to sign on to what more do you want?
In the Wall Street Journal, or passing laws in the House that aren't going to pass the Senate, so you don't have to take responsibility for the results. I'm just wondering at what is happening, for instance, in Arizona with Blake Masters, who is being outraised, I think, over 10-1. Where's the money? You know, Kimberly Strassel, great political reporter at the Wall Street Journal, is blaming Peter Thiel for supporting him during the primaries and then not support. But when did Peter Thiel become responsible for a Republican's election? I mean, where's McConnell? Where is the Republican money? They pulled it out of there, thinking saying, well, we don't think we can win, but they could. It's Arizona. It's a state that very easily could go our way.
Sure.
And so I'm just wondering, like, that we're in this moment of transition, and Donald Trump is a transitional figure. He's the end of something, I believe. As I sometimes say, Donald Trump is a godsend, but God has a habit of sending some very gnarly people that that sometimes we have to walk away from in the end.
That's the good book is full of that.
Exactly.
Actually, both Old and New Testament.
No kidding. So he's a herald of a change. And one of those things is that we've realized now, finally, conservatives have realized that it's the culture that is the war zone, and all this stuff about the economy, very important, all this stuff about practical issues, very important. But if you're not fighting against children being taught that they're the wrong gender in elementary school, you're not fighting at all. You're not doing anything. And those are the things that have gotten us a good governor in Virginia and all kinds of victories. But there's now this old guard, guys like McConnell. That's not their place. That's not their habit. That's the thing they've kind of avoided all this time.
They're very uncomfortable with those conversations.
Very uncomfortable because they're surrounded by media telling them that they're evil if they do that, and people will think they're evil. They don't understand that nobody cares what the media says. Nobody cares what the New York Times writes, except people in Park Slope, Brooklyn, where they all live.
Yeah.
So it's time to break through this thing. I mean, we see DeSantis doing it in Florida. He's great at it.
Yeah.
He's great at coming back at the press saying, no, you're not telling the truth. This is this, and this. But he's also a little bit more statesman-like than Trump. We need more guys like that to push this new agenda. This is a new Republican Party. It's a more working class. It's more culture-oriented. They're going to have to get on that train, or the train's going to leave.
Well, you're smart enough, Andrew, to listen to my morning radio show.
I do. I love you keep waking me up, though. I'm like lying there fast asleep.
But I say this all the time, what happens in your house is more important than what happens in the White House. We got drawn into this thing where it's like whoever is sitting behind the Resolute desk every 4 years is the beginning and end of civilization for us. And that's not how the founders constructed this. is.
That is not what is supposed
And
to be.
while we're following CNN, and networks saying this is all that matters is who wins the presidency, we're not paying attention to our school boards. Look what happened. State legislatures, look what happened. And as you said, governors. And then between Youngkin and DeSantis and Ducey out in Arizona, as you mentioned, plus parents taking back their school boards, I mean, that will make a bigger impact on our culture and the intangibles of how we raise our children than whether Kevin McCarthy is the Speaker of the House.
Right, because this left is really interesting. In the old days, I say Bill Clinton, he's a leftist, but when he loses an election, he says, I hear your message, and he changes. He changes course. Jimmy Carter, we all talk about what a terrible president he was, and he was, but he actually learned his lesson from reality. Starting with Obama, that disappears. It's like, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if our cities get riddled with crime. We still need a George Soros prosecutor. Not going to change our minds. Nothing that happens in reality changes their minds. So the only thing to do is get rid of them.
I've told you before, the law here in Washington, D.C., Andrew, is that no matter what we talk about, it has to be shot through the lens of politics. Now, we're talking politics, but there's a secondary law. If you talk politics, you have to talk Donald Trump. You raised him, but you also raised a couple of the names that have been floated as potential nominees for Republicans in 24. Where do you think things stand right now with former President Donald Trump in terms of his political future?
I think given all things being equal, I think he wants to run. I think he's serious about it. And listen, I've said this a few times before. I think Donald Trump was a godsend, but God has a habit of sending these gnarly guys who really maybe served their term. He's a tragic figure in some ways because the very things that helped him to win also made him lose. And I do believe he lost that election, even though it was a dodgy election. I believe he lost it.
Based on the way the election was conducted, he didn't win.
He has been a bad ex-president. He was a very good president, but he's been a bad ex-president. He lost Georgia by paying attention to himself instead of the country. He's threatened some of our elections, our majority in the midterms by picking candidates who may not be the best candidates in the world. He's thinking only of revenge. He's thinking only of himself. Revenge for himself, not revenge against the Democrats. And so I think it's time for him to go.
Interesting. But it is that fight that he has that so many voters respond to, because we've had candidates in the past and people who said, I'll fight your fight for you, and then they don't fight. They don't know how to fight.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if President Trump knows how to do anything else.
Yes, unfortunately, he doesn't know where the line between the country and himself ends, because he is kind of narcissistic. And I remember during the pandemic, I actually called up some of his people and said, get him to stop talking about himself, because people are literally dying. Their grandmothers are dying alone. They don't care that you're being mistreated by the press at this point. And he just can't do that. He can't shift gears. Again, the very thing that made him terrific, that made him win, is the thing that kind of destroys him. And that's why I've always, from the very beginning, called him a tragic figure, because tragedy is when two opposing forces are in play and both of them are going in the wrong direction. And I just think we need somebody more statesmanlike. If he had just an ounce less self-feeling, less self-attention, he would say, I have done my job. I now crown Ron DeSantis my successor, and good luck.
All right, real fast, Andrew Klavan, because I can't do an entire segment with you without talking about movies or something. Daily Wire, you guys are making movies really well. Quick yes or no, are you going to write a movie for Daily Wire?
I hope so, yes.
Hope so, yes. I'll take it. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us, as always. And again, the book is A Strange Habit of Mind. It's out now, and you should buy it. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.